Okay, this screencast is just to go over this writing a review roadmap. If you read chapter 16 in the Everyone's an Author book, this was kind of like at the end of the chapter. And I think it's just a really good, it kind of sums up everything in the chapter really well, and helps give you kind of a guideline and a roadmap for writing your own personal review. So I wanted to take just a couple of minutes and just kind of talk through it, since we didn't have like a lecture on writing a review. So the first thing that you need to do is to choose something to review and find an interesting angle. You should always pick something that you're interested in and that you know something about, because what's going to make or break a review is your authoritative tone. And if you don't know your subject in some way, it's not going to be a very effective review. Remember that there are many things that can be reviewed: books, book series, movie series, television series, streaming video platforms like Netflix and Hulu, restaurants, a particular item from multiple restaurants, different types of music, someone's new album, art, like art, sculpture, and things like that, cars, different types of cars, or a particular car, a type of appliance, a clothing brand, or different types of clothing, hairstyles, those kinds of things. And if you go online, you're kind of inundated with reviews on everything. Matter of fact, most people use reviews or read reviews, online reviews on Yelp, and you use Yelp before you go to a restaurant, or online reviews of products, or that kind of thing before you make a decision on a purchase. So you should also choose a topic that you want to kind of figure out more about. So something that you're already interested in, something that you know something about, and something that you want to learn more about. And that's the way to be really thorough when you go into writing a review. Rhetorical situations are different for every type of essay or speech that you give. Basically, it's your topic or your subject, your intended audience, and your purpose for writing whatever it is. So for this particular situation, for this particular essay, you want to think about your topic, and carefully selecting a topic that you think will be interesting to your reader, something that's worth reviewing, and something that you're interested in. You want to think about your audience, which for the purposes of this essay, you're writing to one specific person. You're writing to me, and you're doing this for, for an English class. So, but think, there are going to be times when you are going to be asked to write a review in college, maybe of literature, maybe for a business class, that kind of thing. So you need to really consider your audience, what he or she knows or doesn't know, how much level of interest they have in something that you are writing about. And like for this personal review, how can you get them interested in your subject? Like to the extent of thinking of like that so what factor in your essays, like how do you engage your reader into buying into what you're talking about? And then you also think about in your rhetorical situation the purpose. So a couple of points there for the rhetorical situation. Think about what your audience probably already knows about your topic and what they expect from a review. Who are you trying to reach? Why are you trying to reach them? In what ways are they like or unlike you? Level of experience that your audience has with whatever subject. What can you assume about that? Are they likely to agree or disagree with you? What do they already know? What do they need? What background information are you going to need to provide? Will the subject matter to your audience? If not, how can you persuade them that it matters? Okay. think about those things, and that will help you establish a solid review. Think about your purpose. What do you expect your audience to do with the information in your review? You know, if you review tacos from like 4 different Mexican restaurants, you know, basically you're trying to get your reader to try the taco that you think is best. We review hotels. We review restaurants, and you want a particular audience to listen to this CD from, or CD, y'all don't do CDs anymore. Listen to the tracks from an album. Like, those things are things that you need to think about, and how you outline that in your purpose. And how can you best achieve that in your review? Consider your stance. What's your overall attitude about the subject and how you want to come across as an author? Like, if you are interested in it, then obviously you're going to put more emphasis on the object that you are talking about, the subject that you're talking about. How do you want to come across as enthusiastic about it, be witty, well informed? How can you communicate your feelings, and how can your review reflect your stance? Think about the larger context. What background information about your subject should you consider? Other books in the same genre, similar restaurants or menus, similar products made by different companies, other movies in the same genre. What else has already been said about your subject, and how will you respond to it in your review? Consider media. Would pictures or charts or tables, I'm sorry, well, that's the wrong one. Consider media, like media clips, like a clip of a movie or a song or pictures. Would they aid in your audience's understanding of the subject? And in regards to design, you know, you have to follow the format requirements specifically for this assignment, but you need to think about those things and when you're writing in the future for reviews as well. For our purposes, it's going to be APA style, which is a new style, and I go over that fully in our APA style screencast. Think about what's going to help your readers understand your message. Should you include tables, illustrations, graphs? Is your information best presented in a list or a graph? Then you're going to evaluate the subject. Once you've established your rhetorical situation, then you're going to think about your subject. You need to evaluate your subject. Think about your own first impressions. What about the subject got your interest? Well, if you've always loved cars, or you've always loved tacos, I talk about clam chowder in my review. You know, what is it that kind of sparked your interest about it? What was your first reaction, and why? What is the first thing you would tell someone who asked your opinion on the subject? And if you think about that, it will help you start formulating your own review, especially at the beginning of your review. If you're reviewing, you want to examine your subject closely. If you're reviewing a performance, take notes as you're watching it. If you're reviewing a book, read it more than once, or read parts of it more than once. Look for parts of your subject that are significant, especially powerful, weak, unexpected, that you could mention in your review. And remember along that line that you want to give your readers just enough information about something to get them hooked and interested into it, but not so much information that you spoil a book ending, or a book or a movie ending, or plot lines, or things like that. Do any necessary research. Now, you can't use, for this particular essay, you can't use outside research in part or in whole in your own essay, but do some research about reviews that have been made about that product already, just to kind of get an idea of what criteria people look at when they're writing a review for that particular subject. You may need to consult other sources to find background information, or find out what else has already been written. Would learning more about the author or the director help you evaluate your subject? So think about those things. This one is important. You've got to establish criteria for your evaluation. Sometimes these are really obvious. For example, if you're reviewing a movie, you're going to tend to focus on acting, the directing, the script, the plot. At other times, you're going to need to establish the criteria that's going to guide your review. So if you're unsure what is most appropriate for your subject, look up other reviews that have already been done and use those criteria as your baseline for your evaluation. You got to make a judgment one way or the other, good or bad. Okay, and remember that there are few things in this world that are all good or all bad. You're likely going to find something to praise and something to criticize. Okay, so whatever you decide to do along those criteria lines, you're going to use that criteria to examine your subject carefully, look for specific information or evidence that you can cite in your review. Okay, you got to think about other people's points of view. Not everybody is going to agree with you. Some people might not like clam chowder. Some people have never tried it before. So some people have tried it and hate it. They hate the texture of clams or whatever. That's what my review is about. So you need to be able to acknowledge that not everybody is going to accept what you think. Even if you can't persuade everyone in your audience to accept that judgment, you can demonstrate that your opinion is worth taking seriously. And you do that by acknowledging and responding thoughtfully to other perspectives. Think about your balance, summary, and evaluation. You've got to have the right mix in order for it to be successful. You've got to describe or summarize your subject enough so that readers will understand it, and not too much so that you're not giving something critical away. But the primary goal of a review is to evaluate it based on that criteria. And so that balance is really going to be important. The next step that you're going to take is to organize your thoughts and your evaluation, your criteria, and start writing. Once you've determined all of that evaluation, you're going to compile lists of strengths and weaknesses, assemble evidence that you can draw upon to support that evaluation. Then you want to organize your materials and start writing. And you do this by thinking about what it is that you want. So you want to make sure that you think about what it is that you want your readers to know about your subject, what your evaluation of it is, and why. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to come up with a tentative thesis. What major point is it that you want to make about your subject? And if you try to write it out, chances are you'll have a pretty significant thesis. You may need to shape it a little bit, and then but overall, if it's just what it is that you want them to know or get from your review, it's a good working thesis that you can edit. Then think about whether you should state it out loud or not. I would say for the purposes of our essay that you would want to state it out loud so that your reader is always really clear exactly what you're going to be discussing. Also, you need to decide whether you want to put the thesis toward the end of your introduction or save it for the conclusion. And you can, those are stylistic choices that you can make. I think, in my personal opinion, that stating it early on in the essay kind of helps keep your readers on track, and it helps a lot with a logical flow of your points. Then you're going to describe or summarize the product you're reviewing. You don't just launch right in. You need to provide any background information that the audience may need. You want to evaluate your subject. You want to talk about that criteria that you have identified for your review, and you want to present that to your audience so that that your reader knows exactly what you're going to be basing your evaluation on. Then you evaluate your subject. You're going to use that criteria that you identified. You're going to present the subject's strengths and weaknesses, and then provide reasons and specific evidence to back them up. And don't forget to acknowledge those other points of view. Not everybody's going to like that clam chowder. However, if this is your personal review, it's your opinion, and you might persuade them otherwise. Draft an opening. Introduce your subject in a way that makes clear what you are reviewing and why your audience should care about it, and that shows that you know what you're talking about, that you've had some experience in whatever particular subject it is, so they have a reason to listen. Make sure that you hook them in. You want them, that you provide an avenue for them to get engaged with what you're writing, just like you do in a normal essay. And then draft a conclusion. So you're going to wrap up your review at the end by summarizing your evaluation, and if you have any recommendations, you can make them known. All right, I'm going to stop this screencast, and I'll come back with part 2 of writing a review roadmap.